Father, thank you for allowing us to be here in your house this evening. I ask you to bless me now. Give me boldness and clarity to deliver your message. Help us to be attentive to your word tonight. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Now, last week we did most of Genesis chapter 2. We didn't do the last 7 verses, though, and it's talking about a specific topic about a man finding his helpmeet. So the name of the sermon is Finding and Waiting for Your Helpmeet in Marriage. Finding and Waiting for Your Helpmeet. Now, in this room I counted, and half of us are married and half are not. So if you're not married, obviously this would apply to you. However, anyone who's not married is a child of someone who is married. So obviously as parents, even though we're already married, obviously you take a part in who your children are going to marry by giving advice, giving principles, giving guidance, and things like that. Especially as there's many young kids in this room, we want to prepare them in life to be ready for the stage where they're going to get married, even if it is 20 years down the line, right? So whenever the Word of God is preached, everybody can apply it to some degree. Now, point number 1, what does it mean by helpmeet? What does it mean by helpmeet? Well, Genesis 2 verse 18, and the Lord God said, "It is not good that the man should be alone. I will make an helpmeet for him." Now, in verse 18, it does not just say it is not good that man should be alone. It says it is not good that the man should be alone. So he's keying in specifically on Adam. So I believe he's saying to Adam, you specifically, I'm going to make a helpmeet for him, referring to Adam. And I believe the same principle would be true for any one of us, that God created someone that is going to be a good fit for you. Now, of course, we understand that people can screw those things up and everything. And I think if you do screw it up, then down the line, God can help you come in contact with someone else who would be a good fit for you and things like that. But what I'm saying is, Adam was specifically had one person created, Eve, that was a helpmeet specifically for him. And what it says about Eve is she is the helpmeet, meaning she is helping the husband, right? We understand that husbands are the head of their home, and you have to realize the Bible says that the woman was created for the man. That doesn't mean that the man is better than the woman. It just means the woman was created to be the perfect complement to the man. Verse 23 says this, "And Adam said, This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she was taken out of man." So go to 1 Corinthians 11, and of course we're going to come back to Genesis 2. But go to 1 Corinthians 11. 1 Corinthians 11. So it's just a principle we need to understand, whether you're a man or a woman in this room, is the fact that husbands are the head of their home, and the wives are created to be a complement to the man. Okay, that's what the Bible teaches. Now, it's a different world we live in today where they teach kids at a young age, you can be anything you want to be. Don't let anybody tell you no. Don't let anybody hold you back. They were starting to go that direction when I was a kid. And you know what? That's not a true statement, to be honest. Because it doesn't matter how much you want to be a professional basketball player, none of us would be able to make it. We're not tall enough, okay? Right? Maybe Migs one day will be tall enough. I'm not really sure. But it's like just because you want to be something doesn't mean that you're going to be able to do that. I mean, that's just reality. Okay? Now, I do believe that you can be successful in life if you work hard. But I don't believe that every single person has a gift for anything that they want. There are specific things that you have an ability to have. Now, here's the thing. That is a bit of a false statement, but now they've gone to extremes, because now they say, hey, if you want to be a woman, don't let anybody hold you back. It doesn't matter that you were born a man. You can be a woman if that's who you really are inside your heart. And vice versa, they say the same thing to women. I mean, they're going to very bizarre extremes on this stuff. You can be anything you want to be. You want to be an animal? Be an animal, right? Ridiculous sort of stuff, but here's what we need to understand. When it comes to women, they're meant to be the complement to the husbands. And so the Bible speaks about this in 1 Corinthians 11, verse 7. "For a man indeed not ought to cover his head, for as much as he is the image and glory of God, but the woman is the glory of the man." Now we understand that men are made in God's image, right? We talked about that a few weeks ago. Men are made in the image of God, but it says the woman is the glory of the man. So as man is the image and glory of God, the Bible says the woman is the glory of the man. And so one way to look at this, I think I mentioned this recently with the sun and the moon, what the moon does is reflects the light of the sun. And the sun and the moon is a good picture of husband and wife, just like in Joseph's dream, where there was, the 11 stars, the sun, and the moon. So the moon reflects the light of the sun. And the Bible says that the woman is basically a reflection of the husband. The woman is the glory of the man, the Bible says. For the man is not of the woman, but the woman of the man. Neither was the man created for the woman, but the woman for the man. Now look, this is not an insult to women that the woman was created for the man. It is just a fact, though. That's what the Bible teaches. There's just a difference between men and women, right? And instead of fighting against the differences, we as God's people should embrace the differences and say, yes, you know what? There is a difference between men and women. There are things that men are better at than women. There are things that women are better at than men. It doesn't make men better than women. It doesn't make women better than men. It's just that God created us differently. He created two genders, right? Very distinct from one another. Now, there are similarities between men and women, and when we preach the Word of God, you preach on various characteristics, and all of these things to some degree can apply to men or women. But it's true that certain things apply more to men, certain apply more to women, because men and women are different, right? And it's not an insult to women saying that she was created for the man, but it's just a fact. That's what the Bible teaches. And the world is trying to get rid of these differences, but we should actually embrace these differences. And I'll tell you what, the Bible teaches that inside of the heart of a woman, she has a desire to be a mom and to raise children. And I saw this at my old secular job where, ladies would be, at my company, some people are very successful in the business world, and then they had a child, and then it's just by the words that they said, they didn't want to go back. They're just like, I just want to be around my children, right? They're just so happy to be a mom, and I don't think they necessarily realize how happy they'd be because of the fact the world is always brainwashing them, right? But they're just so happy to have children, and all of a sudden they went from talking about math all the time, because that's what we did on our job, to just always talking about their kids like 24/7. And it's a difference between men and women, though. Obviously, fathers love their children, but there is a difference between men and women, and inside the heart of women is that desire to be a mom. And the Bible says that the woman was created for the man. Go to Proverbs 31. Proverbs 31. So when it comes to a woman looking for a husband, she should be looking for a guy that she respects and she's willing to follow. And she says, I'm willing to be the helpmeet for that guy. Whatever his plan is in life, whatever his goals are in life, I'm going to be the supportive husband and help him out. Okay? Now here's the thing. Of course, if he's asking you to sin, then that would be a little bit different. Right? If your husband says, I really think I can make it in the drug dealing world, then you know what? You should not help him with that. But, in terms of, your husband decides this is the church I want to go to, you be supportive of that, be a supportive wife, and you know what? Women should be complimenting their husbands. Now, in today's world, that's not really how we operate anymore. You see many homes where the wives are the head of the homes. They make all the decisions. That is not the way that God set things up. Proverbs 31, verse 27, it says, she looketh well to the ways of her household, and eateth not the bread of idleness. So she's a hard worker. She's taking care of the household. Her children rise up and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praiseth her. Now, it's not a shock that he praises his wife, because this is a virtuous woman. This is a godly wife. And she does a great job as a wife and as a mom. And you know what? The husband praises her. Many daughters have done virtuously, but thou excellest them all. Favor is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman that feareth the Lord, she shall be praised. Give her the fruit of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gates. See, the Bible says for the virtuous woman, her own works are going to be the cause of her being praised in the gates. And in the gates would be kind of like a reference in a public sort of area where people are around. In our modern day, the area we go to the most would be, church. I mean, obviously you go to the market and stuff like that. But here's what I'm saying. You see kids that are growing up in today's world and they're just disrespectful, rude kids, and they're not being taught manners in 2021. But if you raise your kids for God, you're going to have your kids be obedient and love you and be respectful. And you know what? It's going to be obvious to people in public. You go to the plant cake and everybody's going to be like, wow, how is your kid so well behaved? It's like nurture and admonition. right? Those two things. You care for them, you provide discipline, and your kids are going to turn out right. That's what the Bible says. Of course, they're not going to be perfect. Of course, there's going to be times when they make mistakes. But there's going to be a big difference between them and the average kid in this world in 2021. I'm amazed how I see some of these kids just running around all the time out here, and I'm just thinking, man, it's like it's a dangerous and a scary world to let the kids run around like that, right? But if you raise your kids right, you know what's going to happen. It's going to be obvious, and her works are going to cause her to be praised because people are going to say, wow, you know, your kid is so well behaved, right? It's going to be obvious to people because of the fact she put in the work to do a good job. Anything you're going to be successful at in life is going to take some work. It's not going to come automatically. Okay, go back to Genesis 2. Genesis chapter 2. And so for this sermon, I have 4 points, and I made it alliterated, meaning the first letter and the sound of the word starts with the same. It starts with an H sound, so help me. For the second point, I couldn't think of an English word for what I was looking for, so I have hintai. So I got Tagalog. It's like an attacker team, like waiting, hintai, like waiting, like paki hintai, right? And so help me, and then when it comes to waiting for the right person, sometimes there's a wait, right? Sometimes it's not automatic. Sometimes it takes some time. Genesis 2, verse 18, notice what it says. The Lord God said, it is not good that the man should be alone. I will make it help me for him. So God says, it's not good for Adam to be alone. I'm going to make it help me for him. I'm going to make a perfect wife for him. But here's the thing, it does not happen immediately. Right? God says in verse 18, I'm going to make it help me for him, but he doesn't immediately create Eve. First, he creates animals. And see, one thing the Bible's teaching us is finding the right person, sometimes there's a wait that happens. It's not automatic. It takes some time. Verse 19. And out of the ground the Lord God formed every beast of the field and every fowl of the air and brought them unto Adam to see what he would call them. And whatsoever Adam called every living creature, that was the name thereof. And Adam gave names to all cattle and to the fowl of the air and every beast of the field. But for Adam there was not found an help meet for him. So here's the thing. You've got all these animals that are created. Obviously that's not the one that Adam is supposed to marry. Okay? And it goes without saying, though, but God created Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, right? Not Adam and an animal for him to marry. Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, right? And so, you can obviously preach against sexual perversion, but it's obvious, who did God form for Adam? A woman, right? He didn't give him another option. It's not like God says, you know what, well, here's Eve, here's these animals, here's another dude, who do you want to marry? It's not the way it works. God says, no, I created a woman for you, right? And here's the thing. There are 8 billion people on this planet. Roughly 4 billion women, 4 billion men. Now, obviously, a lot of those people are married. Some are obviously too young. Some are probably, too old to be in the age range. But it still leaves you with a lot of options in 2021 of people to marry. And it's just like God says, basically, any woman, as long as she's saved and she wants to follow God, but people just don't want to follow what God says. They just say, well, I just want to do what I want in the lust of my own heart. Well, that's going to destroy your life. Even as a saved person, if you follow the lust of your own heart, it will destroy your life. Right? Go to Genesis chapter 6. Genesis 6. Genesis chapter 6. 20 years ago, you probably didn't even have to stop to make a mention of the fact that, hey, he created a woman for a guy. But you know what? You do in 2021, especially here in the Philippines. It used to be pretty common. It used to be like a running joke. The homos used to be, laughable. People, if you were a homo, you get bullied, you get made fun of. But now it's like, oh, we've got to be nice to them and everything. No, they're sexual perverts. And if they're willing to go against what God says in this area, what about if they go to something more extreme? Especially when we're talking about children. That's a very dangerous thing as a parent with young children. You got to keep a close watch on your children in 2021. We go to the park sometimes, and I love to have my kids running out and playing and everything, and you got to keep a close eye. There's a lot of weird people that are out there. You know, in Echo Park, there's a lot of guys I see running around that track, you know, that are dressed like a woman. It's like, what in the world? You got to keep a close eye in 2021. But notice what it says in Genesis 6, verse 1. And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. Now, here it says the sons of God saw the daughters of men. Now, I don't have time to go on a rabbit trail here about the sons of God. I'm sure you would all know the direction I'm talking about. But, you know, a son of God, the Bible talks about what manner of love he hath bestowed upon us, that we should be called the children of God. To which of the angels said he at any time, thou art my son. So no angel has ever been called a son of God, according to the Bible. So when it's saying a son of God, it's talking about someone who's been born again. You say, Brother Stuckey, being born again is a New Testament thing. Well, why is it in John chapter 3, Jesus told Nicodemus, you know, art thou master of Israel and knowest not these things? Talking about the concept of being born again. And that was before the resurrection of Jesus. So that's still in the Old Testament in terms of the laws and everything they're following. And so being born again is not a New Testament concept. It is all the way at the beginning. John 1 verse 12, as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God. Well, that's still before Jesus rose again in John 1 verse 12. That's even before you see Jesus appearing on the scene and getting baptized by John the Baptist. So here's the thing. That is in the Old Covenant. That's before the resurrection of Jesus. So a son of God is referring to a guy who is saved, a guy who has been born again. That's what it's referring to. Throughout the Old Testament, what is a son of God? It's referring to someone who is saved, a guy who is saved. Okay. Then it says that the sons of God saw the daughters of men. Now notice it doesn't say daughters of God. You say, why? Well, it's showing you they're not saved. If they were saved, it would say daughters of God. So what it's saying is believers, the sons of God, saw the daughters of men, unbelievers, that they were fair. What does fair mean? They were attractive. They found women that they found attractive. And they took them wives of all which they chose. So basically, saved people are marrying unsaved people because they find them attractive. Look, that is a dumb reason to decide to marry someone simply because you find them attractive. Now, I do think you should be attracted to the person you marry, but if that's your only reason, and in Genesis 6 verse 2, that's the only reason given. I mean, can you imagine if somebody does this? A guy marries a girl, this girl is not saved, doesn't like church, likes to drink, likes to party, she curses like a sailor, but, you know, I find her attractive, so I'm going to marry her. Well, good luck in life. Right? And see, most luck in life you make yourself. I mean, luck suerte if, you know what, you make a choice like that. I mean, there's really no hope for you. And the same would be true for a woman, because sometimes women marry guys because they're charismatic or they find them attractive or whatever, even though there's all of these red flags. And here's what you need to understand. People are going to act their best before they're married because they're trying to impress you. If you notice a lot of red flags before you're married to them, wow, you know, you're in for a nightmare of a life, right? Because they're going to try to act good to impress you before that you're actually married. And these guys marry these girls because they find them attractive. You say, Brother Stuckey, would people really do that? Saved people marrying unsaved because they find them attractive? I know people that have done that before. One of my old roommates in college, a saved person, he didn't even give his girlfriend the gospel. He's afraid that, well, you know, she might not be interested in it. So just marry her unsaved. She's a Catholic. It's like, what are you doing? Right? I know somebody that I went to college with. This guy married a Muslim. The girl was a Muslim. And the parents would not let them get married because he wasn't a Muslim. So he pretended that he believed in Islam. This is a saved person. And I know this person. And I'm confident this person is saved. And he pretended to believe in Islam. So it's like if you're willing to compromise on that big of a level, why? Because he found her attractive. Right? I mean, it's so stupid, but I know someone from college that actually did this. It's mind-blowing. He used to go to church with us sometimes, and he was never quite as into it as some other people, but it's like, wow, you know, that's to a whole other extreme. It's not just that you're marrying an unbeliever. You're pretending to follow Islam just because you find her attractive. It's like, well, good luck. I mean, I hope his life's well. I hope he gave her the gospel eventually. And I don't know. Turn to 2 Corinthians 6. 2 Corinthians chapter 6. Look, this happens in 2021. And look, this is definitely something, and of course girls could be guilty of this as well, but I would say this, that guys are probably more likely to do something stupid like this, where they'll marry a girl simply because they find her attractive. Now, I do think that, and I know of cases where women married unsaved people, but it wasn't necessarily specifically that they found them attractive. It was more, they were charming, they acted romantic, they're like, oh, he's so sweet, but he's not a believer. But here's the truth. If you marry someone that doesn't love God, it's going to destroy your marriage. And look, as guys, if we want to be good husbands, number one, we love God above anyone, including our wives. Because if you decide you're going to love your wife more than God and just make all the decisions to make her happy, you're going to start making bad decisions in life. Right? We should always love God above anybody else. Right? And then that filters down next, love your spouse. And then, love and invest in your children as a team, as husband and wife. But you ought to love God first and foremost. And if someone is putting, a person above God, they're actually making a mistake. So if you're trying to find someone to marry who's actually going to treat you well and love you, find someone who loves God. Find somebody who loves God. 2 Corinthians chapter 6. Not only should they be saved, though, the Bible speaks a little bit more here in 2 Corinthians 6, verse 14. 2 Corinthians 6, verse 14. Be not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. Now, the best application here would be in marriage, a believer marrying an unbeliever. But you can still apply this to being close friends with unbelievers and things such as that. But it says, for what fellowship hath righteousness with unrighteousness? And what communion hath light with darkness? And what concord hath Christ with Belial? Or what part hath he that believeth with an infidel? And what agreement hath the temple of God with idols? For ye are the temple of the living God. As God hath said, I will dwell in them and walk in them, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. So the Bible says when you're looking for someone to be married to, make sure they're a believer, but make sure you have agreement with them. Right? Make sure that you're on the same page spiritually. And you know what? It's not just that they should be saved. You ought to marry someone who has similar sorts of beliefs as you. If you marry someone with completely different beliefs and completely different ideas of a direction for your life and how to raise children and things like that, you're going to end up having a lot of problems in your marriage. You got to marry someone who is not only saved, but of like faith. And here's the reality. There are a lot of saved people out there that don't want to live for God. I wish every saved person loved soul winning, but it's not the case. I wish every saved person, loved reading the Bible. I wish every saved person liked this type of church. That is not the case in 2021. It's never been the case. Most saved people do not want to live for God. So if you want to live for God, marry someone who wants to live for God. And if you marry someone who doesn't want to live for God, you're not going to bring them up, you're going to bring them down. They're going to bring you down. It's just the way it works. Find someone who wants to live for God. Now let me give some real practical advice to the single people that are in this room. If you find somebody you're interested in, make sure they do actually want to live for God. And what I mean by that is, not just they came to church for 2 weeks and they like the sermons and now let's get married, but here's the thing. People like this type of preaching for a little while and then they fade out. Make sure they actually do want to live for God. Make sure it's like, yeah, you know what, they love the soul winning. They actually like to read the Bible for themselves. They're developing their own personal walk. Not just they came to church and they were attractive and they like this church. Boom. Well, make sure they actually do want to live for God. You know what, that actually takes some time. I'm not saying it takes 5 years, but it takes more than 5 days, right? It takes time for someone to be in church and you're around them to see, are they the real deal? Because they could be faking it. I know of multiple guys that married girls, and then after they got married, the girls said, you know what, I never actually believed this. I just wanted you to marry me. And they faked it. And both those guys are divorced today. They're new IFB types of beliefs, but the wives actually faked it. And I don't know the backstories on those situations. I'm just saying it is possible for people to just fake it. Yeah, there are guys that would come to a church like this just because they want to find a lady they don't have to worry about cheating on them, who's going to be kind and polite. And the same thing is true for ladies. They can come to a church like this and say, hey, I want a guy who's not going to cheat on me, who's going to work hard to provide. And they come to a church like this to find a guy like that, but they don't actually believe it themselves. That happens. That's reality. I wish it wasn't, but that is reality. So if you find someone that you might be interested in, well, make sure that they're around long enough that you can actually tell if they're interested. I can't tell you how many people have visited our church in Manila and they love the sermon and they're like, man, I love this is great preaching, and then they never come back. You say, why? Because the thing with this type of preaching is when you're hearing it, you're like, man, that's making sense. But then all of a sudden, when you go home, you realize, oh, I need to start applying this. It's like the sermon against rock music was really interesting. I was learning a lot, but now when I go home, I still want to listen to rock music. And see, the reality is there's a lot of people like that they agree with what they're hearing preached, but they don't actually want to apply it themselves. So here's the thing, if you're looking for someone to get married to, make sure they're around our church at least for a little bit of time. And the other thing I'd say is this, get advice from your parents as well. And the reason why is your parents are going to have your best interest at heart. There's this expression, you can't see the forest for the trees. And what that means is if you're inside of a forest, you can't really perceive the whole situation because you're in the middle of it. But if you were just standing on the outside, you can see what was going on. And the truth is that as people get older, they get experience in life. And you might not notice any red flags with the guy or the girl you're interested in, but mom and dad might notice those red flags. They might notice those subtle little things because they're paying attention in an unbiased way to say, is this a good fit for my son or my daughter? Right? Whereas, when you're young, you don't pay attention to those things. Or you have the attitude, well, they're going to change. Right? But see, once you get older, you learn a little bit more. So when our kids get older, you know what? I hope that we have a good enough relationship that they'll come to us to get advice. And you know what? If some guy wants to marry my daughter someday, I'm going to make sure that this guy is the real deal. That he loves God, he's going to work hard, and he's not just faking it. It's like he's going to have to pass the test. I don't have a list yet, but I'll probably have a list of 55 things. And it's like, all right, check, make sure, he passes it. But the bottom line is this, you got to marry someone who's not only saved, but they actually have similar sorts of beliefs as you do about the things of God, and they want to actually serve God. Go to Genesis chapter 2. Genesis 2. Here's the thing, that is hard to find in 2021 especially. It's hard to find, which means you gotta wait. You gotta be patient for the right person. It's better off waiting for the right person than marrying the wrong person and being miserable the rest of your life. Right? The odds of someone deciding to serve God, if someone's not going to serve God before you get married, it's unlikely they're going to serve God after you get married. It is possible. I've heard of cases where they do. I'm just saying it's very unlikely, and that's a big risk you're taking. Right? You only get one shot at this. Genesis 2, verse 21. And the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam. And he slept, and he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh instead thereof. So a rib is taken out of Adam, and obviously this is used to make the woman, right? Now, from a website, scoliosis.org, I found where it talks about ribs that are taken out of people, whether or not they grow back or not. So a lot of people have questions about this. Do women have more ribs than men? Well, here's what it says, and men and women have the same amount of ribs. But you say, well, why would that be? From this website, when the ribs grow back after surgery, do they actually form a new rib bone and reconnect to the spine? And how long does it take for this to happen? Yes, the ribs do grow back, forming a new rib. This takes approximately 2 to 3 months. So in our modern day, if a rib is taken out or they have surgery, it actually grows back, it says, in 2 to 3 months. Now, I don't know for sure if this is every single rib or every single situation, but if a rib is taken out, it can actually grow back, according to this website. It also says this, is the new growth as strong as the original rib? The answer is the new rib, once it is completely healed, will be as strong as the original rib. So I believe we can presume that the rib that was used to make the woman actually grew back in Adam is what I would say. Okay. Now, point number one, we saw help meet. Point number two is hintai, or waiting for the right person. Point three is the hunt, or the pursuit, or searching after that person. It says in verse 22, and the rib which the Lord God had taken from man made he a woman. And notice this, and brought her onto the man. The Bible says that God brought the woman onto the man. And Adam said, this is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. So what we see here in verse 22 is that the woman is brought onto the man. Go to Genesis 29. Genesis 29. And what I would say is this, that people get married in different ways. We see this in the Bible. There's not necessarily a set formula. But you know what you do see is that God will provide a spouse for someone. He will give you the ability to meet the right person. And it comes in a lot of different ways. But it's very similar to what we saw in Genesis 2, where the woman is brought onto the man. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the men are always expecting it, but you know, the Bible does show that women are brought into the lives of men, and then they can meet the right person. And what I would say is this, that if you're searching for the right person, more important than looking for the right person is being prepared for the right person. And so many people are spending all of their time looking for the right person, where they might have a lot of areas of their life where they're not really prepared themselves. And what I always tell people when they ask for advice is, be as prepared as possible in whatever area, as a man or as a woman. If you're a guy, you know, be prepared to be a husband. Be prepared to be a father. Be prepared to be the head of your household. Instead of just spending all, because what you'll see is guys will spend all their time looking for the right girl, and it's like, well, you're not ready for the right girl. So what's the purpose of looking for the right girl when you're not actually ready? Instead, prepare yourself. And the same is true for a woman. Look, it's a big change in life when you go from living, you know, with your parents and underneath their authority to being married and having your own family. That's a big change. Maybe it will seem easy, but you know what? It's not easy. Every husband, every wife, you know what? You all learn, all of us, we learn, especially over those first couple of years, there are a lot of lessons you're learning and mistakes you make. It's a big transition. Doesn't it make sense to make the transition not as drastic, be as prepared as possible so it's not as much of a shock to the system? Of course, experience trumps everything, and you're not going to have that experience yet, but you can actually prepare for that stage. So you look at what a husband's supposed to be like in the Bible, and you start acting like that before you're married. You look at what a wife is supposed to be like, start acting like that before you're married. But most people, they're just searching for the perfect person, and it's like, well, you're not the perfect person either, though. And sometimes people can search, they want the perfect person. It's like, well, look at a mirror first and ask yourself, are you the perfect person? It's like they're looking for this dream person that might not even exist in real life because of some movie they saw when they were in college or whatever. And it's just like, you know what, instead of worrying about all of these things in another person, you should actually prepare yourself. Now look, as a guy, I do believe that husbands, as the head of the home, they should be the ones that are, you know, kind of pursue the woman more so than the woman pursuing the guy, and they should take the lead in the relationship and things like that. But here's what I'm saying. You know what? I don't think that as a guy that is serving God in 2021, you have to just start waiting outside of grocery stores, just stopping random girls and trying to ask girls out, or going to a bar, or going to these extremes. Now, of course, you want to have confidence if the right girl comes along, but I'm just saying, I do believe that God can provide them in a spiritual sense in church, or somebody new who comes to church. I do believe that. I mean, our churches, you know, more so in Manila, not as much now because obviously travel is harder, but, you know, before there was any lockdowns, you know, we regularly had people that would visit our church. Single guys, I mean, we had lots of single girls that visited our church in Manila before, and it's just like, you know what, there's people there at church. There are both men and women that want to live for God in 2021. That's the truth. So I don't believe that you have to just go to some extreme to try to search for the right person. I do believe that if you're serving God and doing what's right, God will bring that person to your path. Genesis 29, verse 7. Here's an example of this. Verse 7. And he said, Lo, it is yet high day, neither is it time that the cattle should be gathered together. Water ye the sheep and go and feed them. And they said, We cannot until all the flocks be gathered together, and until they roll the stone from the well's mouth, then we water the sheep. And it says till they roll the stone. They is plural. Multiple people need to roll away this stone, right? Verse 9, and while he yet spake with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she kept them. So Rachel's coming along, and of course Jacob does not know Rachel. Verse 10, and it came to pass, when Jacob saw Rachel the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, that Jacob went near and rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. So once Jacob sees Rachel, he rolls the stone away himself. He doesn't need help from somebody else. Well, it's obvious he finds her attractive. Okay, I think there's no question when you read this. Because when he sees Rachel, it's like, oh, we gotta wait. It's like he sees Rachel, it's like, this is like one of those stories where somebody has a car trapped on top of them, where they get that superhuman strength to push it off or something like that. And Jacob is pushing the stone away. So I will say this, if you look at the life of Jacob, Jacob was a very hard worker. And this was a day and age where you did laboring jobs. So I'm sure Jacob was actually a very strong person. Right? And one of the big things of being prepared for life is just being a hard worker. Because it's hard work to be good at marriage, and it's hard work to provide for a family. It's hard work to provide for family and raise your children and come to church and go. So it's a lot of stuff, isn't it? Our schedules are busy if we're serving God. If you're serving God, it's not like you just have 20 straight free hours to watch all these episodes of whatever show, right? You're actually busy. If you're doing your job that God has for you, you're serving God, you're spending time with your family, you're working, it keeps you very busy in life as a guy or a girl. Jacob was a very hard worker, and guess what? Jacob was very prepared to meet the right person. He is very prepared for a wife. He's a hard worker. We also see this in verse 14. Notice this. Verse 14, and Laban said to him, surely thou art my bone and my flesh, and he abode with him the space of a month. So Jacob is there for a month. And notice this in verse 15. And Laban said unto Jacob, because thou art my brother, shouldest thou therefore serve me for naught? Tell me, what shall thy wages be? And Laban says to Jacob, should you serve me for naught? What he's saying is this, Jacob, you've been here for 1 month serving me for naught, meaning I'm not paying you. 1 month, Laban told Jacob, we're relatives. You can stay here, here's a place to stay. But Jacob doesn't treat it as a vacation. Jacob is actually working. He's saying, I'm not going to sit around and do nothing all day. I'm actually just going to work. Right? He just volunteers and works hard. And you know what Laban says? Man, you're serving me for nothing. He's like, what do you want to get paid? What shall thy wages be? Can you imagine in 2021 if you go into a job interview and they say, blank check, how much do you want us to pay you each month? Right? I mean, it's amazing. Now, of course, that is his relative, so it gives you a bit of an advantage, obviously. But Jacob is working hard. That's what the Bible's trying to teach us here. And look, I do believe that in 2021, even in a difficult economy, if you work hard and love God, God can give you the ability to provide for your family. I believe that. And we see that here in Genesis 29, where Jacob goes there, and it's not like he's got this great situation waiting for him. He doesn't have anything. Just works hard, and then boom, he's got a career. He's got a future, right? But here's the thing. Jacob didn't really have to hunt that hard for Rachel. She was just kind of brought to him. But here's the thing. Jacob was prepared because he was a hard worker, right? Turn in your Bible to Genesis 2. Genesis 2. Now, I understand what it's like, to be single. I mean, I got married when I was 30 years old. I just turned 30. My wife was 29. And I remember being single, and I thought to myself sometimes, man, you know what? I feel like all of my free time is at church and soul winning, and there's really no girls at my church that are potential for me to marry. And it's just kind of like, man, how am I going to meet the right person? Right? Because I thought in my head, I'm so busy, and then it's just like I'm going soul winning, throughout the week, and then going to church and just working, trying to make money. It's just like my only activity really is church. I mean, I play sports from time to time with my friends, but really, church. And the same is true for all of us. Our big activity is church. right? We'll do fellowship and games around church activities. And you wonder sometimes, where am I going to meet the right person? And I felt like inside of my own heart, I was trying to search for the right person. And then I just kind of I'm just going to quit wasting my time. I'm just going to serve God. And I said, you know what, I'm content if I never get married. You know what, I'm just going to serve God, get people saved. And you know what, it's not like I can really complain. God is blessed with an eyesight. And honestly, when I was not looking for someone, God just brought my wife into the picture. And it's like, I remember I made a joke to it, because my friend actually married my wife's friend. So someone she went to church with here in Pampanga married one of my friends. And so, I made a joke to this girl who married my friend, and I said, oh, which one of your friends are you going to set me up with? I just made a joke, right? I wasn't really being serious. She immediately pulled out her cell phone and showed a picture of my wife. And I just meant it as a joke. Oh, which one of your friends are you going to set me up with? And then it's like, literally in like 5 seconds, right? I really wasn't searching for it at the time. I mean, of course I would have been happy to meet the right person, but I was just kind of like, you know what, I've spent years trying to search for the right person. It hasn't really worked out. I feel like I could have just invested that time in working harder, preparing myself, making money, serving God. And it's like, you know what, I'm not saying it's going to work out like that for everyone. I'm just saying that's how it worked out for me, that when I wasn't really searching, that's when it came. And my wife would say the same thing. She wasn't really searching. She was just serving God. She was working. And then I was brought into the picture. And so I do believe, though, that is the basic template you see in the Bible, that if you serve God and love God and you prepare yourself, God will provide a person. Now, look, I don't know how exactly it's going to happen. Of course, church is a great atmosphere in terms somebody can set you up with someone or someone new can come to church. I would say that's the best place. But I just believe that God could bring the right person in the picture. I think of one of my friends who lived in West Virginia, and he just had some free time one day, so he went with his mom to the grocery store, just helping her shopping, and then he met his wife there. And it's like, this girl has some free time, and she's just with, her mom shopping, and then all of a sudden they start talking. They end up getting married. She was already a Baptist as well. So it's just like, it's not inside church. Maybe God leads you to the palenque. Right, you get to the palenque, you're getting some mangoes, she's getting some avocados, and then boom, the romance starts. I don't know. But I'm just saying, it's like, I don't believe that you have to go out of your way to hunt for the right person. I believe that God can bring that person in your picture. Now, I'm not saying that when it says the woman was brought unto the man, it means it's going to be 8 o'clock in the morning, you're waking up, drinking your coffee, and then it's like knock, 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 and then all of a sudden, I'm your wife. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying I do believe that if you're serving God, that is really the template. Being prepared for the spouse as opposed to spending all your time searching for the spouse. Go back to Genesis chapter 2. Genesis 2. Genesis 2. I don't like to form dogmatic opinions or tell people what to do exactly, because honestly in the Bible, people meet people in different ways, but it just seems like the common thing is if you're serving God, God can bring that person along. And I'm sure all of us would have similar sort of testimonies where it's just like God brought the person into your picture, right? This is the way it works. Point number 1, we talked about it help me. Point 2, we said etai or waiting. Point 3, hunting, the hunt. Point 4, halves become whole. Halves become whole. Genesis 2, verse 24. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. The Bible says that when you get married, what takes place is you leave father and mother and cleave unto your wife. Now, in verse 24, what it's referring to is it's referring to the guy leaving his father and his mother and cleaving unto his wife. But the same would be true as well with the woman. Go to Genesis chapter 12. Genesis 12. Genesis 12. Genesis chapter 12. And we see an example of this with Abraham in the Bible. And, here's the key, because when you get married, you have your own household, and husband and wife, you make the decisions for your household, okay? This doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to separate in terms of distance, but in terms of your mindset, you should believe that, we are a new family. It's not like mom and dad are making the rules for me anymore, right? There's many choices that I make for my kids that, my parents would not make the same choice. They would have made a different choice for me. They would have different opinions on that. Maybe even sometimes they make suggestions, but it's just like, I have my own family. I've got to make the decisions in my family with my wife because I'm no longer under the authority of my parents because I'm married with my own family. Right? Now I hope that I can lead my son, raise him in a godly way and everything, and he'll want to listen to dad. But at the end of the day, when my son gets married one day, whether he's 18 or 25 or 35 or whatever, he is not under my authority. He doesn't have to listen to dad anymore. I do believe you should honor your parents your entire life, but he has his own household and he makes the rules. But one of the big things I see is that people sometimes get married, but they allow their parents to make their decisions for them. That is not biblical. When you get married, you should make your own decisions. Okay? And look, the thing that's dangerous about this is, for most of us, our relatives are not going to have the same religious beliefs as us in all areas. You're not going to have the same opinions of how to raise our children and things like that. And if you let your parents push you around, you're going to end up doing things that you don't want to do. And this happens all of the time. And it's a bit of a problem here in the Philippines, because although I do believe you should honor your parents your entire life, sometimes people allow that to go too far, where they allow their parents to make their decisions for them, and that's not the way it's meant to be. Genesis 12, verse 1. Now the Lord had said unto Abram, Get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred and from thy father's house unto a land that I will show thee, and I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee, and in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. So Abram departed as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him. So God tells Abram to depart, and if you're just looking at Genesis 12, it looks like Abraham just obeys this. Abraham departs as God spoke to him. And Abram was 75 years old when he departed. Notice this, out of Haran. So he's 75 years old when he obeys God. Okay, go to Genesis 11, verse 31. What he was told in Genesis 12 was, separate from your father's house. Now, I'm not going to look at it for sake of time, but Abraham's dad was not saved. Abraham's dad was not a believer. Okay? And it says in Genesis 11, verse 31, And Terah took Abram his son, and Lot the son of Haran his son's son, and Sarai his daughter-in-law, his son Abram's wife, and they went forth with them from Ur the Chaldees to go into the land of Canaan, and they came unto Haran and dwelt there. And the days of Terah were 205 years old, and Terah died in Haran. Okay? So, at the end of Genesis 11, it says, Terah takes Abram his son and the family, and then they move into Haran, and then Terah dies in Haran. Okay, now go to Acts chapter 7. Acts 7. Acts 7. Now, I could be wrong, but I think briefly in the narration of Marching to Zion, they cover this briefly, I'm pretty sure, in the first 10 minutes. They do it very quickly, but I think they kind of mention a little bit about Abraham. I'm not 100% for sure. But here's what you need to understand what takes place. Abraham does obey God, but he does not do it immediately. He obeys once his dad dies, actually. That's when he actually listens to what God says. You can see this in Acts 7. Notice this. Then said the high priest, Are these things so? And he said, Men and brethren and fathers, hearken. The God of glory appeared unto our father Abram when he was in Mesopotamia, before he dwelt in Charan or Haran. It's a different spelling, okay? So God appeared in Mesopotamia, and that's when he said, Hey, I want you to leave. But then it says, before he dwelt in Haran. Remember, the Bible says that Abraham's dad brought the family to Haran. So Abraham was told in Mesopotamia, depart from your family. He doesn't listen. And then this is before he dwells in Haran. His father takes the family to Haran. Well, he was told to depart from his father's house. Okay? It says in verse 3, And said unto him, Get thee out of thy country. See, that's what God told Abraham in Mesopotamia. Get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred, and come into the land which I shall show thee. So he says, Get away from your kindred or your family onto the land that I will show thee. Then came he out of the land of the Chaldeans and dwelt in Haran. So he doesn't obey immediately, but he goes to Haran. Why? Because his father brings a family there. And from thence, when his father was dead, he removed him into this land wherein he now dwelt. So he obeys once his father dies, it's saying here in Acts chapter 7. And you say, why did God tell him to remove from his family? Because his dad was worshiping false idols. his dad was not saved and he didn't want to serve God. Now, people are in different situations in life, okay? There are some people that just do not want to serve God, and they would be a hindrance to serving God if you're around them. And that could be your situation, it might not. But there might be other times where your parents would not be a hindrance. So I'm not here to make people's decisions for them, but I would say this, that if you have a situation where your family is preventing you from living from God, you might want to draw a bit of a line in terms of some separation. You know, my wife has a lot of family in Pampanga. This is where she's from. And we see her family from time to time, you know, not that often. You know, her family's very nice, but her family's all Catholic. I'm not going to hang out with her family every single week and go out to lunch every single week. Because eventually that's going to rub off on me, right? So look, when it comes to separation from family, everybody has to decide in their mind where they draw the line and make some decisions. But there should be some sort of separation, at least inside your head, in terms of the fact, hey, we have our own family. It doesn't matter what mom and dad say. We make our own decisions. Now, one thing that's tough is some parents will really try to push things on their kids. Or some aunts and uncles, some cousins, they want you to do it exactly like they do. It's like, well, you really shouldn't raise your kids like this. You should do it like that. Now, that's a rude comment to make, but people make comments like that. Especially family will make decisions like that. They just suddenly say, well, Genesis chapter 2. And so, when a marriage takes place, the halves become whole, and what that means is husband and wife cleave unto each other, and they are one flesh, the Bible says. They are a new family. And you know what? My kids are very young. I'm sure this is going to be very difficult for me when I get older, not pushing my values on my kids, because it's probably very difficult. I'm sure it is. Right? I'm not standing up here saying, well, when I'm a parent, it's going to be so easy for me and everything. I mean, of course, you know what? All of us would probably be kind of like this, where we want to tell them certain things, say, well, you shouldn't do this. But the bottom line is, when people are married, that is their own family. And one thing you don't see is this idea that an entire family of 100 people are one family. Because there's this sort of mentality here in the Philippines. Sometimes it exists in the U.S., but really here, you know, in the Philippines, where it's like a family of 25 is like one family. Where it's like all of us just chip in all of our money to co-pay for everything and co-make the decisions for the family. But that's not the system that God has in the Bible. I'm not saying it's wrong to help out family members, and obviously people have different situations and everything like that. But I just want us to all to realize, as Bible-believing Christians, when you're married, that's your spouse, and you are one flesh, you are one family, and you know what? As nice as your family members might be, your parents, they might have different beliefs, and that's usually the case. Genesis 2, verse 25, it says, they were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed. Now, next week we'll cover that because it ties into Genesis chapter 3. And so we have 4 points here today in Genesis chapter 2, and this is all about marriage and waiting and finding the right person. Number 1, the helpmeet, right? The wife is the complement to the husband. Number 2, hintay, meaning waiting. So sometimes you got to wait for the right person. It's not necessarily going to be immediate. God told Adam, I'm going to make a helpmeet for you, but not right now. It's like, I'm going to make animals first, right? And here's the thing. People have this idea, well, I'm ready to get married now, so it's going to happen now. And it's like, well, it might not. Sometimes you got to wait. But I would just warn people, don't make the mistake of marrying someone when there's a lot of red flags. Because honestly, it would be better never getting married to anyone than marrying someone that's completely the wrong person. And I'll tell you what, you know, it might seem like a long search and a long wait, but, you know, I do believe that God can bring the right person in your path. It's more important to prepare yourself. So when it comes to the hunt, I don't really think that there is that much of a pursuit. It's like I believe God would provide the right person for you. And then lastly, halves become whole. The husband and wife, they get married, they are their own family. Now, let's close in a word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for allowing us to be here today and just getting to see some principles on the topic of marriage and finding the right person. I ask you to help everybody in this room that is not married yet. God, I ask you to help prepare the right person for them and help them prepare themselves. Help them be ready for that right person. And I also ask you to help all of us as parents to give good guidance to our children, but help us to all realize that, our kids, when they get married, they are their own family now. Not to push our values on them, but help us to give proper guidance that would be suitable